Hearing none, we'll move forward as a unanimous approval. All right, item number 3. Will?
Good afternoon. Now, I'm not seeing the presentation up at the moment. Is anybody else seeing the presentation?
We're working on that, Will, so you may just have to go with the slides that you've got in front of you.
Okay. Let me then try to share my screen and set that up for y'all. Okay. Okay. I'm not allowed to share content unless I'm the host, co-host, or a presenter.
I just sent you presenter privileges, so try again.
Okay, now I got it.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right, can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, I can see.
Very good. Okay, now the main thing I want to present on today, let me back up. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Will Liska, Regional Planning Manager for CAMPO. Today, I'm primarily going to present on the Safe Streets for All discretionary grant program, but before I dive into that, I wanted to provide folks an overview of open and upcoming notice of funding opportunities from USDOT. There are 2 NOFOs out right now, the Safe Streets for All program, which closes on September 17th, and the Bridge Investment Program, which has 3 different deadlines depending on what you're applying for, be it planning, a large bridge project, or a bridge project under 100 million. In addition to those open NOFOs, I wanted to make people aware of some that might be upcoming very soon as late this month or early next, the Roadway Crossing Elimination and Grade Crossing Safety Improvements Program, the Reconnecting Communities Pilot Program, and then later this summer, the National Culvert Removal, Replacement, and Restoration Grant Program, and the Thriving Communities Program. Then later in September, we expect to see the Strengthening Mobility and Revolutionizing Transportation, the SMART Grant Program. Now, to keep track of all of these upcoming funding opportunities, we recommend following the link provided here to USDOT's website, where you can track all the open and upcoming NOFOs, information about each of them. I would also highly recommend that everybody sign up for email updates from grants.gov. Okay, with that, I'd like to dive into the Safe Streets for All.
Hey, Will, this Ed Collins. I have a question on those grant applications or those opportunities. Are these one time, or are these going to be part of the new federal law that they'll be coming maybe every year?
Yeah, good question, Ed. These are all part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So these are all new this year and expected to continue for 5 years.
Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to dive into the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. This is a discretionary grant program supporting planning, projects, and strategies to improve safety and reduce serious injuries and fatalities on the transportation system. As I mentioned before, the NOFO came out last month, and proposals are due September 15th. This is a new grant program this year through the IIJA, with $5 billion available over the next 5 years. Up to $1 billion will be awarded to this year's applicants. And there's 2 types of grants available through this program that I'm going to get into in a minute: action plan grants and implementation grants. I also want to note that there have been 3 webinars hosted by USDOT to date. I provided a link to those webinars where you can watch the recording of them and find supplemental information related to those webinars. I would highly recommend that the folks that are interested in this program go to that website and watch the webinars if you haven't already. So a little bit about the difference between the 2 types of grants available to this program: action plan grants and implementation grants. Action plan grants are intended to fund the development or completion of comprehensive safety action plans, or otherwise supplement activities to update an existing safety action plan. The definition of what a safety action plan includes, I'll go over that in a minute, but it is described in detail in the NOFO. The other type of grant is implementation grants. These fund roadway safety projects and strategies that have been documented in a qualifying safety action plan. To pursue implementation grants, you need to have the project included in a approved action plan. For this year, applicants may only submit.
To get approval of an action plan, who has to approve it and how long does it take?
Excuse me, could you repeat the question, please?
Who has to approve an action plan and how long does it take?
I would assume it would be your governing body. The action plan, we're going to go over the specifics of what's included in it per the definition of the NOFO, and maybe talk a little bit about the timeline.
Okay, so it's local improvement. So if you're the city of Austin, it would be the city of Austin approved it, and that would be their action plan. And as long as it had the right components to it, it would be, projects within it would be eligible.
And can I barge in? This is Kathy Bob. You also have to have it certified by the Safe Streets for All people that it does meet all of their qualification requirements. So there's a little checkbox in the NOFO that tells you what all you have to do to get your existing plan certified.
How long does that take?
It didn't really say, but you turn it in, it may go roughly on the same time frame. I'm not sure. There's an opportunity, if you like, to ask questions on that website, and they will answer you. You have till August 15th to ask questions.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Just
sorry.
That's okay. And just a little bit more detail for you, Bob. There is as part of this application process, there's something called self-certification. If you have a plan that you think might qualify as a safety action plan, you fill out a table with requirements, which I'm going to cover in a second. And you self-certify that plan meets the definition of a plan per the NOFO. And then USDOT reviews both your assessment and the plan itself to determine if it qualifies. But back to the two different types of grants, applicants may only submit one for this cycle, whether as lead applicant or as a joint applicant, which I'll also talk about a little bit later in the presentation. So what must a safety action plan include? This diagram outlines the expected process for a safety action plan, including key tasks and outcomes. The NOFO also provides very specific detail about what a safety action plan needs to include. 3 elements are required for all safety action plans: multimodal roadway analysis with mapping, a list of improvement projects and strategies, and the plan needs to have been completed in 2017 or more recently. It also needs to include at least 4 of the following 6 elements: a commitment to eliminate or reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries, formation of a task force responsible for the action plan process, meaningful engagement of the public and partner agencies, an equity-centered process, analysis, and impact assessment, an approach to updating existing plans, policies, and guidelines based on the findings of the plan, and metrics to assess progress of the plan over time. Before I dive into a little bit more detail on the action plan grants, I just wanted to cover a little bit about what the implementation grants can fund. So the implementation grants, again, has to be included in an existing action plan, but it can fund projects that are infrastructural, behavioral, or operational, and must be directly related to addressing safety issues. It can be used for any phase of project implementation, including design, construction, operation of a program. I also want to note, though, that new roadways and added capacity projects, as well as maintenance projects, are not eligible for funding under this program. I also want to note an interesting element of this program. Unlike most surface transportation block group funding, roadway improvements under SS4A do not need to be associated with a federal aid highway, so it can fund improvements even on local streets. Example projects that that a sponsor could pursue: roadway safety treatments of all types, bike and ped or complete streets improvements, speed management programs or strategies, first responder programs like the HERO program, or various types of safety technology deployments. So funding availability and requirements. The US DOT outlined general guidelines, expectations for how much they would award for specific types of applications. So for action plan applications, a application with a single applicant would be expected to receive between $200K to $1 million, whereas a MPO or joint applications, an application that's more regional in nature, would be expected to be awarded between $200K and $5 million. Likewise, with implementation grants, the ranges are different depending on the application type. 3 to 30 million for a single political subdivision applicant, or 5 to 50 million for a MPO or joint application. They are not going to award more than 15% of all funds to a single state this year. So for Texas, that would be a maximum of 150 million. But they're also expecting to award up to 40% of the available $1 billion to fund action plan grants this year, since they know that many jurisdictions do not have one that meets the requirement of the NOFO yet. Like any federal grant program, it's an 80-20 split, 20% applicant match. This applicant match could include cash or in-kind contributions such as staff time. We think that it could also include transportation development credits as a means to cover that match. Like any federal grant program, this is a reimbursement program. You need to have the funds available, you spend them, and then you get reimbursed by the government. So who can apply for SS4A? It's open to metropolitan planning organizations, political subdivisions of a state, including cities, counties, and special districts, and multi-jurisdictional groups comprised of the entities above. One notable absence from this list is the state. So TxDOT is not eligible to apply for an SS4A grant. However, they are allowed to be a partner on an application. I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a second. But back to the multi-jurisdictional applications. Regional applications are highly encouraged by US DOT. Applicants may develop a single regional action plan covering all jurisdictions, or several local plans administered overall by a lead agency. Duplicative applications will be flagged by US DOT. And if two applicants propose on a similar geography, US DOT might either deny the applications or suggest that they combine those applications into a single one. Like I've said before, each applicant may only appear on one grant application in this year's SS4A program. So a little bit about what the difference is between a joint applicant and a partner. So a joint applicant must be an independently eligible entity, like the ones I described on the previous slide. Joint applicants are party to the grant. This means that they are included on the grant agreement. There's an expectation of a contribution to the match amount, either cash or in kind. And each joint applicant would be able to lead a component of the planning process in the action plan. So partners, however, are not party to the grant, in fact, don't need to appear on the grant application. And partners may include additional non-eligible entities like TxDOT. Partners are stakeholders in the planning process. And if an eligible applicant is a partner on an application and not a joint applicant, they may still apply for their own grant. So a little summary about what's important here. The SS4A program will award $1 billion per year through 2026 for roadway safety planning and implementation. And to pursue implementation funding, projects and strategies must first appear in a qualifying action plan. USDOT highly encourages action plan grant applications this year, since they know many jurisdictions do not have them yet. Regional applications are highly encouraged. Applicants may propose development of a single action plan covering all jurisdictions or several action plans for individual jurisdictions administered by the leading agency. With that, I'd like to shift the focus of this item to how we could approach the action plan grant application process to open up more of the region to implementation funding or the ability to go after implementation grants. CAMPO has had discussions with several agencies about this, including City of Austin and Travis County. So next, I'd like to invite Kathy Stevens from Travis County to talk about potential approach for a regional action plan grant application. Kathy, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Will. Great
Sure.
job. Just as kind of background, Travis County had already been thinking of doing a safety action plan just for the county and was trying to work out in our heads how to work with 20 some odd cities to form an action plan just for our county. Then we learned that really it would be far better off to go the regional route, and that makes sense on many levels. But we were struggling with, if you do a regional plan just for 6 counties, it's at a different scale. So the high injury network, the crashes and the projects that you pick to fix them are going to be different than if you were looking at a local level. And we were trying to figure out how could we come up with a way so that the regional plan would also allow everyone to get down to the local level to do what they need to do to meet their needs. And this is our draft, very draft, still fleshing it out, framework of how one way this might work. So this would involve, and I apologize for the busy slide, but I was trying to get it all on one. Basically, this would have a 6-county regional plan with its own set of analyses and networks and project prioritization, etc., for the really big projects, multi-county projects, big picture view. And this would be, CAMPO's main responsibility, as well as CAMPO would be the lead agency over the rest of this. But in that regional plan, there would be, I think, public engagement would work best at a regional scale. We could get one really great public engagement campaign with branding and then use that consistently throughout the region. That would, I think, be more effective than everybody doing their own thing. And also identifying other safety funding opportunities is best coming from CAMPO. So those are a few of the things we thought of that CAMPO would do, as well as manage this whole thing and be the lead agency. We did think down in the green boxes that each county could have their own task force and develop their own plan. And one of the big reasons for this is our counties are so different that the needs and the characteristics of those counties from a safety perspective are widely different. And you'll see, for example, we in Travis County probably have the most accidents or crashes, but some of the more rural counties have the highest fatality rates partly because emergency response takes longer to get to the crash. So there are a lot of differences that we could look at better from this county specific perspective. So, and then to make this all mesh together, you would need this middle tier, the CAMPO Safety Task Force. So this would be the chair and the vice chair from each of the county task forces, along with TxDOT, CTRMA, Cap Metro, CART. And we also, and it's not on the slide, but believe we should add the City of Austin Vision Zero folks. The City of Austin has been doing this type of planning for several years. They're a national leader, and I'm sure they have learned a lot of lessons and have a lot of helpful hints and would be very valuable to everyone in the region in that respect. So placing them on the safety task force, we thought would be a good idea. The task force would kind of be the intermediary between CAMPO and all of the different county task forces. I believe CAMPO would be hiring a consultant to do this work. And so on the task force level, you know, each county forms their own task force with their cities and other stakeholders that they think need to be involved. Maybe they're, you know, law enforcement, ESDs, ISDs, whatever. Each county has their own task force, and that task force would either work directly with the consultant in more of the joint agency or joint applicant, role, or if they don't want to spend that much or don't have the bandwidth to do that, then CAMPO staff can work with the consultant on their behalf, and the CAMPO staff would come back and report to the task force what the findings were, etc. And so they would all be doing, looking at the needs and the characteristics, doing the safety analysis, coming up with a local high injury network or networks, coming up with the safety projects and prioritizing those, etc. One of the things we felt like is done better locally is really being able to emphasize enforcement. Other than DPS, I can't think of any regional enforcement folks that would apply for this for a certain thing. And then there's an emphasis in the NOFO on coming up with low cost safety improvements that you can apply over wide areas. And also there could be a menu of strategies or countermeasures that would allow the task forces to pick what they want to commit to. So they can pick their own level of commitment as well. And then the task forces could help push out that regional public engagement plan. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We really did this to get the conversation going. So would love to hear your input on whether you think this is a good idea, whether you're interested, whether you already have a safety action plan and so you're gonna do your own thing, etc. And with that, I will be quiet. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kathy. And I do have a slide that kind of follows up with a couple question prompts similar to the ones you just laid out, and I just want to walk through them again. But then I'll go back to to the previous slide for conversation. Again, with this in mind, is there interest in a regional action plan application led by CAMPO? And if so, how would your agency like to be included in the process? As a joint applicant that's party to the grant and has some contribution, or as a partner agency, you know, for each of those county task forces, if this county so chooses, the work for developing and delivering the county level plans could be delegated back to CAMPO. And based on those questions, so maybe think about since you know this is due September 15th, we need to start having conversations about commitments. You know, if you want to be part of this grant application as a joint applicant, and what sort of financial contributions follow, and if so, who do you need to talk to determine how your agency would like to participate? So with that, I'll go back to the previous slide and turn things over to the TAC for comment and discussion.
All right, so if everyone will raise their hand, I see Ed and Bob have their hands up, and I would like to go through each county representative and just get a sense from the county's perspective on the plan that Kathy's laid out for Travis County. But let's start first. Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a great approach. You know, the smaller communities would have the benefit of what the larger communities have already done. You know, in writing grant applications, and I just finished up one for 10 electric vehicles, but I really relied upon a previous application that was done by by the state, and which was awarded $30 million. And so anyway, so just from a little small agency with, one person working on that, it was a challenge, and I was lucky I was able to do that. What I'm saying is that many other communities that could benefit from this would benefit from the larger group of going forward. And I think that's an excellent thing that CAMPO could help move the region forward to get some of these federal funds. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. So, Bob, let's start with Williamson County. What are your thoughts on this?
First couple questions. I guess first couple of questions. First, lots of bureaucracy here. Is CAMPO going to be able to get consultants hired, if you're going to hire consultants, and do that and be able to submit an action plan, not a planning plan, for dollars within the required time frame? First question. Next is observation that if CAMPO does this, it automatically precludes the counties from doing it by the previous comment that we will be forced to combine in, whether we want to or not.
Yeah.
That's just an observation.
Yeah.
So you don't really have a choice of go, no go. If the region is going to do it, you're within the same geographic zone. If CAMPO says this is something we are going to do, just acknowledge that that's the path that everyone's going to have to play, and we got to figure out how to make it work.
The only thing I would say there, Bob, is what San Marcos has considered is if you completed an action plan using local dollars, you could go on your own with a plan that would meet the requirements at a different pace, feed your plan into the more regional study as a partner versus a joint applicant. But I think, Will, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for your comment, Lori. And Bob, thank you for your question. It's a very good one because this is a 5-year program. This first year, they really are encouraging the action plan grants, but at a regional level, how long does that take? And when is it realistic that the plan would be in place to then allow for all the jurisdictions to go after the implementation grants? I mean, knowing that it'll probably take a little bit of time to, even after award, get the grant off the ground and actually start the planning process. I would not expect it to be in place, for the next cycle of SS4A. So definitely not for 2020, 2023. 2024 is a more realistic possibility, but we don't know exactly what the schedule is yet. I do think also there's potential for each of these green boxes, each of these task force developing a county specific plan. Maybe one of these moves a little bit faster than the overall regional plan and allows those jurisdictions to pursue funds a little bit more quickly or before it all rolls up into the regional plan, because individual plans can be adopted by by their jurisdiction.
So I guess the bottom line you're saying is that the region would not go after funds for this year. Is that what I'm hearing? As CAMPO.
Excuse me?
Are you saying that the region would not go after funds this year? You're going to wait till next year to ask for money?
No, we would be putting in an application this year.
Okay. So did I misunderstand on your previous slides that you were not going to get money from both action and planning funds for the same region at the same time?
It's for the it's based on the eligible applicant. So we've had conversations with the city of Austin. They think they might apply for implementation funds this year because they might have an eligible action plan. So they're applying for that. That means that the city of Austin cannot be joint on a planning grant application. But it doesn't mean that by CAMPO applying for a planning and action plan grant, it doesn't preclude all of the other jurisdictions within the CAMPO region from applying for implementation grants if they have an eligible safety action plan.
And Will, the difference is if you are a partner, then you could go ahead and, like City of Austin, they already have their own action plan. They're going to do an implementation grant, but they can be a partner on this grant, and that way they're able to do both. So if you had your own safety action plan that you wanted to submit and see whether it passes muster, then you could just be a partner on this regional grant, and that's the way to do both.
That's correct. But if you're saying that your jurisdiction is weighing being a part of being a joint applicant, having stake in the game for this regional application, or trying to go after implementation funds for SS4A, you would need to make a choice to do one or the other.
Right. Okay.
So,
thank you.
Bob, this is actually to your earlier question. If Williamson County felt like it wanted to either go after an implementation grant or go after one of the planning grant monies that CAMPO would also be looking at for the region, you would have to, basically what Will was saying earlier is you have to opt in. You have to tell us you want us to cover Williamson County. If you don't, then we will leave Williamson County out of our portion of the application. So we will not preclude you.
Okay, Amy, did you have a question?
No, ma'am. Well, actually, yes, I do. So I am Amy Robertson. I'm the new county planner for Bastrop. And I have a few questions about the county-specific task forces. Are there any specifications or standardized obligations that you're expecting from the counties that would have to kind of match each other, or is it truly county-specific and need-specific? Alternatively, or also, what is the timeline for the creation of these individual task forces?
I can talk a little bit about the timeline, and then Kathy, maybe you can chime in about the task forces. So in terms of timeline, again, the SNOFO is due September 15th, and the award of the grant would probably happen late this year, early next, with the grant agreement signed in late spring, early summer of next year. So it wouldn't be until award is made, there's an agreement in place, that these task forces would be formed. So more than likely about this time next year.
And Amy, I'm envisioning that there would be like a few baseline commitments that each task force would need to make. So for example, you would to make a commitment to work hard on this, for lack of a better term, and maybe to push out the regional public engagement campaign and to provide your data to CAMPO, or, very basic things. But other than that, it really needs to be totally up to the county on their approach, and particularly the projects and the measures that they choose as important for their community. So there's very little set structure to it in my head, and this is evolving. So people may say there's a better way, and I'm totally open to hearing about that. But that's kind of my vision of it.
So Kathy and Ashby, to kind of build upon that, is I think what would occur between the cities and the counties would probably be some kind of an ILA, but for example, with San Marcos and Hays County being a larger city, we may want more detailed analysis. Do you envision, or do you think we would be able to have variation somewhat in the kind of plan between the counties, or the detailed breakdown of the plan between the counties?
So Lori, I want to sort of reinforce some things that Kathy just said. I think we as this group need to establish some fundamental things that every county will need to address in their plans. But beyond that, the county can do more if they want to. So I think the short answer to your question is yes. But there's some basic things that I think we need to say, we want these in all the plans, so that when CAMPO pulls them back into one thing, we've got some consistency across the plans, but they don't need to be exactly the same. The other thing that I want to reinforce that Kathy said is that this is sort of still evolving, and we're asking questions and asking for input. At this point, one of the things I would like for y'all to think about is, if you wanted to go in with CAMPO on this regional planning grant and we were awarded the funding, how should we split the funding up among the counties? Because at this right now, I don't know how we should do it. I'm open to suggestions.
And I'll just chime in. I think as far as doing more detailed analysis than some smaller jurisdictions may want to do, I think that should definitely be an option. I think it needs to be something you figure out kind of ahead of time, so that it can be included in the price in the work plan for the consultant to do. But I think that it should definitely be something, because these should not be all the same. There'll be different levels of detail of analysis and different things analyzed, so I think that is something we'd want to work out up front. That's my thought.
Thanks, Kathy and Ashby. Nadia?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to verify that Cap Metro would not be an eligible entity, and if we wanted to participate, then we would only be able to participate as a partner agency.
Yeah, thanks, Nadia. This is actually a specific question that came up on the webinar I was watching. And so you might need to dig into a little bit of the formation of Cap Metro. If it was formed by the state government, it might be considered an eligible entity. There's a good FAQ that kind of goes through all of that on USDOT's website. But if it does not meet that description, then yes, I think you could be a partner, but not a joint applicant.
Okay, I'll take a look, but I think we are interested in, helping out in some way or another. We certainly have a lot of safety issues that we'd like to, plan for.
And Nadia, we would love to have you work with us. I know in our area and in other parts of your service area that you be fit. And same with carts, Ed.
Definitely. Charlie?
That's just a quick question to Will. Have you taken a look at possibly TDCs as a opportunity for match for the region?
Yeah, it's something we're thinking about. Honestly, one of the first things that came to mind when they talked about the 20% match. I put in that question to USDOT. I have not heard anything back yet, but Ashby, you had your thought was that it probably would be included as a potential match.
Yeah, thanks, Will. So, Charlie, I feel fairly confident that we can use TDCs as the match. So we're double checking that. Right now, my plan, depending on the input we get back from y'all over the next month or so, would be to put an item on the September board agenda to ask the board to agree to TDCs as the potential match should we be awarded a grant. Because the board meeting is like right before the deadline, so we can make it work.
Is it too early to put it on the August? Or
Yeah, I don't know that we'll be ready yet, and since we got a little bit of time before the, the board meeting happens before the deadline, I think we can get it in.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Ed, I'm sorry to cut you off. Did you have a comment on participation?
No, I said that Clark would be happy to participate in this regional effort.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Yeah, so we heard from Amy with Bastrop County. Greg, what is your sense from Burnett County?
I think it'd be the same thing. We would participate with CAMPO because Burnett County just, simply wouldn't have the resources to develop its own action plan. So we'd participate with CAMPO.
Okay, and I don't think Will's on the call. Is there someone else from Caldwell?
Yes, David Fowler from Lockhart. Similar answer to the others. We'd probably be interested in doing the CAMPO centered model.
Okay. Jerry, I know you're on. What's your thoughts? I had heard that maybe Hays County was interested in pursuing one of these anyway. Does this change how you?
Hey, Lori, Will Conley's here.
Oh, hey, Will.
Hey, sorry about that. On the road. I guess a quick question for Ashby. Don't you think this concept should be taken to the board and kind of generally accepted, and we work out the details, or has it? I kind of feel this is above my pay grade, honestly.
So, well, we took it to the board earlier this month. So they've seen the concept and they know we're bringing it back to them. But I didn't hear any concerns. All I heard was before.
Okay. Obviously, it's a big policy decision, so our board members seem to make that decision. So, but overall, I think Caldwell County be willing to participate.
Thanks, Will. Jerry?
Well, similarly, I believe partnering with CAMPO is probably the decision we'll make. I wish I had invited my my grants people to listen in and comment. We may not be able to make deadlines if we go it alone. If I'm understanding the process correctly. I mean,
Okay. Well, I know we'll be working. We'll get back with you to talk it over. And so Kathy, I know you're good, and Bob, coming back around to you. Any more questions, thoughts?
Madam Chair, I have one more follow-up question. I think I heard Will say that Cap Metro or a partner agency could partner on both a safety action plan and an implementation plan. So if the city was doing an implementation plan, Cap Metro could partner with them on that one and also be a part of this overall regional action plan.
Yes, as a partner, meaning that you wouldn't necessarily even need to appear on the application. The amount of the information that actually goes on to the planning grant applications is relatively sparse. There's more detail involved in the implementation grants. But again, like I mentioned, the difference between a joint applicant and a partner is that a partner is involved in the process, but they are not actually party to the grant. So you don't actually sign the grant agreement. Does that answer your question, Nadia?
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Tom, did you have a question?
I do, thank you. Just for clarification, I heard earlier that the city of Austin might be submitting implementation applications. And if I heard Ashby correctly, that if folks are already, if they already have a plan or if they're applying, then CAMPO's regional plan would have to exclude whatever applications are being submitted. Is that, could you provide clarification? Would the city of Austin's plan be omitted from the regional plan?
That's a question. That's a good question, Tom. And one that, again, that I put into USDOT. My feeling is the answer is probably no. That area is not excluded from the regional plan. The city of Austin just can't be a joint applicant with us, but they can still partner in the process. That safety action plan was last updated in 2018. So this could provide an updated safety action plan with more current data analysis for all of Travis County through the Travis County Task Force.
Okay, thanks. And if I can ask a follow-up. So if the city of Austin submits an application for a specific project, but if there's overlap in a study or for the plan, that would be then separate, right? As long as there aren't two applications for the same project, right? If I heard you right.
That's correct. A eligible entity can only submit one application this year, either for a planning grant or an implementation grant, and that includes as a joint applicant. Now, I'm not sure, did that answer your question, Tom?
Yeah, oh yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Oscar, I'm going to come to you, and then we'll come to you, Bob. So, Oscar.
Hi, I'm filling in for Mike Sexton at CTRMA today. I don't have a firm answer for CTRMA, but a question about would we be eligible as a joint applicant or a partner? And if we're eligible as a joint applicant, how we are governed by both Travis and Wilco. So how would we potentially fit in there?
Thanks, Oscar. Again, I recommend you check the eligibility requirements on the USDOT website that's been linked here. Similar to Cap Metro, eligible applicants have to be, if not a subdivision of the state, like a city or county, then they need to be established by state law to be eligible for this grant process. That is, as a applicant or a joint applicant. If the answer is no to that, then CTRMA could participate as a partner.
Okay, thank you, Will.
Sure thing.
All right, Bob.
A couple questions. What fiscal commitment is CAMPO looking for from the counties?
That's the conversation that we're going to start having over the coming weeks. We are going to do some estimation of what a planning process that looks like this would cost, what the application would look like, and then think about how joint applicants can contribute financially to the to the application. Maybe it can be cash contribution, it can be in-kind staff commitments, but that's something we can start talking after we have buy-in.
Well, I guess a couple be more specific questions. Is you talk about CAMPO hiring a consultant? Is CAMPO going to use planning funds, or some other CAMPO source to pay for the consultant?
I'll defer to Ashby on this, but I don't believe we could use PL funds since this is, you can't match federal with federal.
Correct. So Bob, we would have to use this grant money to hire the consultant.
So you've got to get the grant to hire the consultant.
Yes.
All right.
That's right.
And then the match would be hopefully toll credits.
Correct.
All right. Are there any other fiscal liabilities that anyone can see at this time other than the match for a project itself? I'm just asking because my bosses always ask me, well, what's it going to cost us when I go to them with an idea?
Nothing I see.
Trying to figure out what are the fiscal liabilities.
Nothing I see right now, Bob, but I'm going to think through it.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll call it there.
All right. Other questions? Any input on Ashby's question to us as we're thinking about that financial or fiscal breakdown from the different counties, how we might look at that? Is it a population base? Is it, I don't know, what else were you thinking of as options, Ashby?
Just, I've only thought about it for a little bit. So, remember this is coming off the top of my head. So we thought about population. We also, I threw out the idea of, do we look at fatality rates on a per capita basis? I mean, I don't know. I'm open to suggestion on this. I thought, well, we could just split it 6 ways. But then, some of the counties are going to have a lot more to cover than other counties. So I'm open to suggestion.
So, Will, Ashby, Chad, in terms of next steps, as we've all absorbed this, is it talking to our county folks? Is it getting back to CAMPO staff? What do you want us to do next?
I think this is a discussion that we need to start having together with county representatives. I know that we've heard from folks from Bastrop, Burnett, Caldwell, Hayes, obviously Kathy presented, and from Bob. I think that all the folks we've heard from today, it's probably a communication chain that we need to start as we kind of refine the expectation for the overall budget and what sort of contribution joint applicants versus partners might have to the process.
Quickly, let's remember there's going to be an overall regional planning component of this too that covers all of the 6 counties at a high level. So that's part of the cost. So just splitting it 6 ways wouldn't maybe work out. But the best outcome, tell me if I'm wrong, Ashby, is that we could match the whole thing with TDCs. And then nobody would need to provide a match, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Will, is there a timeline slide?
There's not a timeline slide.
Okay.
But we have it's due September 15th. I think that following this conversation, I'll be sending out an email to continue the conversation with county representatives. Chad, we can talk offline about that process.
Okay, so I have follow up with Charlie, Bob, and Ed. So I'll start Charlie.
Real quick, and I think y'all got to it right at the end, but my concern is timing, and that we can't probably wait till the next TAC meeting to kind of make sure that every county is in. The way I heard it, I'm not sure, Bob, and maybe you're going to talk a little more, but Williamson County hasn't really expressed yet kind of in or not. I think everybody else sort of did. So, but, and I know it takes more than just a TAC meeting and just coming off the cuff, hearing this and coming forward and saying, yeah, we're in. So, but, so there, I think there needs to be some other, and Will, you did say that email is going to go out. So maybe that's the process to kind of firm it up, who's in, who's not, that sort of thing. So I'm comfortable with that, but I'm just saying it can't wait till the next TAC to kind of get that idea, affirmation or not. Thanks.
That's a good point. Charlie agreed. Bob?
Yeah, I just say, I respect my cities, and without, I don't, I mean, this is kind of like Santa Claus and apple pie. Yeah, everybody's for safety, but I want to talk to Gary and Tom and all the other cities to try to, be sure that everyone is nodding yes. I think that the answer will be yes, but there may be some that want to go their own way, and I want to respect that. I'm not, I don't feel like I'm king and are able to speak for all the cities. I have the smallest amount of population, so that's why you haven't heard anything from me is yes or no, is I need to make some phone calls first.
Okay, Ed?
So, like I said, I just recently finished a grant application. Don't wait to start writing. You got to start today. I mean, you're gonna find yourself trying to gather a lot of information, and it's better to kind of go big first, and then you can scale it back. But the art of a grant is, it's really an art, and so trying to get all that together, you really can't wait very long, because you won't be successful in getting a good grant application. Many times also they limit the amount of words that you can put in there too, which is good, but also you can provide a lot of different background, maybe in an attachment. But please don't wait to start writing the grant. You probably should have already started doing that. And then those seminars that are done by the federal partners are really good. They give you some good advice, and really listen closely to those, because it could save you a lot of time. But that would be my from my experience, I would pass on.
Thanks, Ed. Tom, did you have something else?
Good, thanks. Just to follow up on Ed Collins' point, that if we're all going to be looking to submit or if CAMPO is going to be submitting an application this September to do the regional plan, it's really just to ask for funding to be able to hire that consultant to conduct the plan, correct? Or am I missing something there on that?
Tom, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, Tom, it's just funding for the match for the hiring of the consultant to do the plan.
Okay, but the application for the safety action plan, aren't we asking for us to be able to take a year to conduct that overall regional plan?
Yes.
And then a year from now, we'll take that plan and then apply for specific projects from that plan, correct?
Yes, that's right.
All right,
But as
thank you.
far as what we all need to think about coming up with now, it's just match money. It's not the whole consultant dollar amount.
Right.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
Gary? Are you muted, Gary? We may have lost Gary's audio.
Hey, look, it shows that he's unmuted.
Hey, Gary, put something in the chat.
Sorry about that. I had to step away for a moment.
Oh, no, we were saying Gary, not Jerry.
Okay.
But we're glad you're back. So from your side, Jerry, you're gonna get together with some of the cities and just monitor the process. Is that kind of what you're thinking? Okay, I will assume that's the case. Gary, are you still wanting to add something? Gary Hutter?
Making that sign of no, like cut.
Okay. All right, anyone else on this particular item? All right, so what we'll be looking for as TAC members who have expressed interest in this, we'll be watching for Will's email. If we're a county, we're going to be reaching out to our cities. If we're a city representative and we're interested in this, we're going to be talking with our counties, and CAMPO is going to start working directly with county reps. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so let's move to item 4, which is discussion on project readiness for regional corridor improvement. Chad.
Thank you, Lori. Just checking with Joyce on the presentation. Do we have that available here?
Will should have it if Will can continue sharing his screen, please.
All right, so while Will is pulling that up, I'd just like to bring back to everyone's attention the project readiness for regional corridor improvement program that we discussed at a few TAC meetings last year. We presented both the TAC and the board, and it's CAMPO's proposed program of corridor studies across the region. Again, officially called our Project Readiness for Regional Corridor Improvements. So as we presented this to the board, it included 8 corridors around the region. However, the direction that we got from the board members was to add 2 additional corridors to the program. So their approval actually included 10 corridors across the region that we will show on the map shortly when that gets up on the screen. And one of those corridors was US 290 in western Hayes County, and then extending outside of the CAMPO area a bit. And so we do want to note that since we received board approval to put this to bid this to consultants and approve a contract, since that time frame, TxDOT notified us that they intend to conduct a corridor study on that section of US 290. So we obviously don't want to duplicate that work, and we will, work with TxDOT on that corridor. So we're gonna we'll remove that from our own program, since the work will be done by TxDOT.
Chad, I just wanted to interrupt for a second.
Please.
I don't have the full presentation.
Okay, I think Joyce emailed it to you just when you were presenting.
Oh, okay. Sorry
Yes.
about that. Let me bring that up.
So as we had indicated when we discussed this item with TAC last year, we noted that we would obviously be bringing this program to TAC regularly for input in guiding the process. And we are kicking that off today. We awarded the contract for the program to General Engineering Consultant, or GEC team, led by BGE. I'll be handing off the presentation to that team shortly, so they can introduce themselves and give the committee an idea of the first steps in this process. Again, we are at the very first stage of that. And so I will hand that off to Eric Busker at BGE to discuss that. I think we'll wait until we get the presentation on the screen, Eric.
Yeah, sounds good. I've also got it up. I got my slides up here, but that might just be too much shuffling, so I'll wait till Will can get it up there.
Well, I mean, Joyce, would it be fine if Eric shares his screen?
I think Ryan has about gotten it up. So if he doesn't get it up, there we go. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
We got there.
You're welcome. Hang on just a second. Let me get it over there.
Yeah.
Do full screen. All right, y'all got it.
Ryan, you probably go up and switch it, the display settings to.
Yeah, it's got the next slide.
There you go.
There we go.
There you go. All right, Eric.
Awesome.
And over to you. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Chad. Yeah, and obviously thanks to the CAMPO team for the opportunity to serve as a GEC. I know I speak for our whole team when I say we're really excited to really get going here. So as Chad said, I'm Eric Busker from BGE. On the call from our team is Wes Yashek and Sam Higgins from BGE. We also have Brent Christian and Luke Easterling from RPS kind of supporting us. So just reiterating, the objective of the program is really to assess needs and identify corridors to accelerate to and through the various stages of project development. Major goals is project readiness, getting projects ready to be added into the RTP, maximizing the ability to capitalize on future federal funding opportunities. Also, right-of-way preservation. A lot of rapid development along these corridors, as we're all aware. Want to preserve a footprint that protects the ultimate right-of-way needs to meet the current and future demand as a result of the growth that we're seeing. Next slide, please, Ryan. So talking a little bit more about our process. So we're starting with segmentation. These are long corridors. Some are 20, 25 miles long. So we'll want to break these up into manageable pieces that can be moved forward through NEPA. Then moving into evaluation criteria. We'll identify criteria that's important to the TAC and the policy board, other stakeholders as well. And ultimately, we'll use this criteria to create a profile for the corridor that's going to be used as we move into prioritization, the next step. So during prioritization, we'll gather all the data for each of the corridors that we agree upon based on that criteria, and then find out where the highest needs are, score, and then prioritize those corridors. And then, of course, on the left, we're going to maintain continuous TAC and policy board engagement. I want to make sure that y'all concur with the segments as we're breaking them out, the evaluation criteria, et cetera. So definitely want to make sure that y'all are engaged in and concur with the process as we move forward. Next slide, please, Ryan. So just briefly talking a little more in the weeds about segmentation. So that's what we're kind of getting started with. This is standard engineering process that I think we're all familiar with, which are manageable pieces and project limits. So we'll identify logical termini, again, major cross streets, jurisdictional boundaries like city and county limits. We're also looking at existing roadway configurations for consideration. So changes in typical section, if there's a 4-lane section that necks down to a 2-lane section, we kind of just want to capture that break and consider it appropriately. Next slide, please. So looking at just kind of the schedule, kind of the short and midterm, we'll definitely accelerate this as much as possible, but first run at it is, segmentation is fully underway. We expect to send draft segmentation maps to the TAC very soon for your review and feedback. Goal is to have all segments identified and finalized in July. Then moving into evaluation criteria. We'll develop that criteria, ask for the TAC's feedback, not only on the criteria, but also the relative weights for each criteria. That'll be identified and completed between July and September. Then moving into prioritization. So we'll process all the data that we compile, examine the output, distribute it to the TAC and policy board for feedback, and that will be completed by the end of this year. And then we really get into the project development stages. Next slide, please. So next steps, we'll be engaging the TAC here very shortly on the segmentation exercise. We'll be sending those maps out for your review, just looking for your feedback. So please be on the lookout for those maps coming from CAMPO. With that, we'll open it up for questions.
All right, anyone have any questions for Eric or Chad? Oh, you're first.
Sorry, I missed. Which corridor fell off because TxDOT's pursuing it now?
That was US 290.
Yeah, what would be the end product at, from the planning and product development stage?
So it's kind of a continuous exercise, I would say. Ultimate goal is really getting as many of these projects to and through NEPA and really ready to move into final design to capitalize on funding opportunities. So in terms of a final product, it's really more of a working program. In my opinion, Chad, anything you would disagree with there, add on to?
Yeah, no, that sounds right to us. Get through the NEPA process and get ready for both. Getting ready both for typical funding and also when there's new funding bills or unexpected funding becomes available, be ready for that.
Yeah,
I think one of the things that I described when I presented this last year, especially at the board meeting, was the idea of the time frame that it takes to tee up that next round of projects beyond the ones that we're on now. I'm starting to get those teed up through this.
Yeah, the reason I ask, and thank you for the clarification, is that I'm not sure what the budget is for this, but I bet you it's not going to be enough to do 9 corridors to get them through the NEPA process. So, where will those resources come in the future to continue work on these corridors? That don't have to answer that now. I'm just saying that's something to think about.
Yeah, that's something that we've also, are aware of and presented to the board, and ties into the first few stages of this process, which is the segmentation and prioritization, realizing that we do not, that the funding we have for it currently would not be enough to cover the studies for all of these corridors. So we will be working to continue to add funding to this program to do those additional studies.
Bob?
Yeah, as a minimum, as a local receiver of these plans, what we need is the right of way identified so the corridor can be defended. That's the biggest product. Someone was asking, what's the product? The product needs to be establishment of the right of way footprint so that all of the local governments can defend the right of way.
Good point, Bob. Okay, anyone else? Right, I'm not seeing any other hands. So let's move to item number 5, which is discussion on the new 2020 CAMPO travel demand model update. Greg.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Greg Lancaster, and I'm the Travel Demand Model Manager for CAMPO. And CAMPO, in cooperation with TxDOT and their consultant AECOM, are in the process of calibrating and validating a new 2020 travel demand model, utilizing 2020 census, new travel and transit surveys, new traffic count data. And the new model will have a 2020 base year, a 2025 and 2030 interim years, and a 2050 forecast. This effort began in November of 2021. We held our kickoff meeting in January of 2022. We'll complete the process by August of 2023. Next slide, please. Some of the main work that's been completed to date has been to establish a technical working group and a stakeholder group, which I'll explain a little more in a little bit. We've completed a COVID impact review. We've reconciled census blocks and TAZs, and the state demographer's office has completed control total memos for population and employment. Next slide. Okay, the TWG was formed to review data inputs and outputs and provide guidance during the model update process. This group consists of TxDOT, AECom, TTI, the State Demographer's Office, Capital Metro, CARTS, and CAMPO. We've had one meeting to date where we reviewed the metropolitan area boundary, which will remain the same. We finalized the model structure and functionality. And we've reviewed the impacts of COVID and how it might affect the modeling. And we determined that the modeling should move forward as a business as usual approach with the ability to look at COVID impacts as more data becomes available. And the stakeholder group consists of counties, cities, some chambers of commerce, and we've even reached out to the Austin Realtor Association and some school districts. And this group was formed to provide demographic and employment forecast data that is known for their area and guide us in the direction of growth that they see growing in their area and which direction that'll be going. Excuse me. We've had a couple of meetings with different groups and we've received good input from them. And there are a few outliers that haven't responded, but we are actively working to get a response from them. Next slide. These are the county and regional control totals for population provided by the state demographer. And these will be used as a starting point to forecast the population for each model year. And the annual population growth is running around 2.4%. That would add about 1 million families to the region in 2050. And as you can see, Hays and Williamson counties have the highest growth. And currently, Williamson County actually has the 2 fastest growing cities in the nation with populations over 50,000. Next slide. Here are the regional employment control totals provided by the State Demographer's Office. This is something that they've started doing now. Employment growth is outpacing population with a healthy 2.69% annual growth rate. There should be around 1.2 million jobs added, which would double the current regional employment. And Hays and Williamson County show the largest growth in the region, and Travis County would add the most jobs. Next slide. As we move forward with our work, we'll be updating the 2015 network to 2020 conditions. We'll continue to work with our stakeholders to gather data and update our zones. And we will be updating UrbanSim with this data and begin making forecast runs. And our second TWG meeting will be held in the next couple of weeks. And I'll take questions.
All right. Bob and then Cole.
I'm just going to make a comment. Greg, thanks for reaching out. We are still trying to work with some of our cities to get a little better data for you. COVID has impacted some of our abilities. It has raised its ugly head again, but we do have some population and employment data headed your way when we can get it together.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Cole?
Thanks. I guess first question was okay, I have a couple questions. Who's been contacted from the city of Austin to participate in the stakeholder group? And then second, this was something that I'd mentioned or repeatedly mentioned about having a TAC subcommittee to focus on supporting the development of the model and demographics. Is that still something that's can be entertained?
Okay, your first question is Lilia Valencia. That's who the email was sent to. That email actually contains a link to a web page that you can drop pins in areas where you know growth is or is coming, whether it's population or household, and you know what type of growth it is, what type of employment it is, or what type of housing it is, whether it's single family or apartments. And we haven't talked about actually having a TAC subcommittee, but we have talked about having a stakeholders group meetings in between the TWG meetings that we're having. And many of the stakeholders are TAC members. So I guess essentially I could answer that as yes.
So Paul, I do recall, you know, we had a lot of discussion about the demographic data, and I did visit a little bit with Greg about it, and I did see the data that they sent out to the city of San Marcos. I think, Greg, that the step that I see is missing is it does talk about where we forecast for future growth, which is great, but it doesn't address maybe going back and looking at some of the zones and how the 2020 census has that allocated, whether they're actually going to grow or not. So there's probably definitely some detailed work that needs to be done. Did you have the opportunity to think about that at all?
We're not really into the details yet. We're just now starting to, once we realigned our zones to match the census blocks, we're starting to put that data in and do those comparisons. And so I can't really answer that yet. That's probably going to come up in the TWG meeting. But yes, I'm doing everything I can to try and fine tune the model and its data.
Okay, Charlie, did you have something?
All right. So Greg, the shareholder or the stakeholder group has not met as a group. It's going to be done through emails. Is that correct? Is that how you're working it?
Right now, it is just done through emails, but I've been having conversations with TxDOT, and I expressed that we should maybe try to have some meetings with all of us together. And we're just trying to work through logistics of that right now.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. I think it would be good at least to sit down kind of as a region with the stakeholders. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know
Thanks.
if you noticed, but we have 6 technical working group meetings on the very first slide. And I was thinking of trying to have 3 or 4 meetings with the stakeholder groups to be able to kind of inform the TWG also and the TAC.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Lori, just to follow up. I still do believe, you know, it's my strong recommendation that the TAC is heavily involved in the process in each step along the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I think that the discussions that I've had with Chad and Greg, I think they both acknowledge that this time we have the time to take that closer look that didn't occur last time, to make sure everybody feels comfortable with that. And so certainly I agree with you. I think we need to have the opportunity as the TAC and the members of the TAC to make sure that we're all on board. So I appreciate the work you've done on helping us understand. All right, so one thing that I would say is, based upon how much data you all have given us today, it would be really helpful to get a copy of the meeting presentation. And I can't remember if that's just posted on the web and we can look at it there, or whether you can email it to us, but I think that would be helpful even as we talk about our participation in the regional action plan.
Definitely, and especially since that one had so much detail on it, that our plan was to provide that to everyone. We will do that.
Great. Ashby, did you have something?
I'm sorry.
He's good.
Okay, so item number 6, report on transportation planning activities.
I will ask Joyce to start this one.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very dark. It's like I'm a background character or something over in this lighting. Anyway, the report here is for the Northeast Burnett County study. We put out this RFP a couple of weeks ago, and the proposals are due next week on July 7th. And then originally we are anticipating interviews for this study to happen in late July. The certification review for CAMPO will probably be done that week, so we may be moving it to the first week of August. But the Burnett County study, it's for the northeast section of the county to look at current and future potential improvements and needs moving forward for the county as it continues to grow. So that is the report on this RFP that's currently open.
Thanks, Joyce. And I just wanted to remind everyone that the TxDOT's 2023 UTP is currently being developed and going through the public involvement stages. There's a virtual public meeting on July 7th and a virtual public hearing on July 26th with public comment period open through Monday, August 8th, starting July 8th and continuing through Monday, August 8th. So that, of course, is TxDOT's 10-year program or plan, depending on how it's used. And is, of course, very important for a lot of the work we do, and it's just undergoing its annual update. So I just wanted to bring that to the group's attention. And I think, Lori, I think that's... All right, Ashby's got some.
So last Friday, we heard from Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, and they have confirmed that they have set our required federal certification review for July 26th through the 28th. The public hearing will be on the 27th over at the Joe C. Thompson Conference Center, where we used to have the board meetings at the request of Federal Highways. And I think that meeting is going to start at 5, but we're going to be posting that on our website to help the federal agencies out with that. Just as a reminder to folks, because we are what's called a transportation management area, so over 200,000 population, we must have a federal review of our planning processes every 5 years. So maybe every 4 years, and so we're due this year, and anticipating questions on that. No, we have not received the report from the 2018 review, so I don't have that to give it to you. But those are not open meetings, so it'll be the review portion will be CAMPO staff and TxDOT and the federal agency staff going through that, and then they will issue at some point afterwards both a report and a letter telling us whether or not we meet federal requirements. So stop there. Oh, so also on the certification review, part of the review includes interviewing board members, and so I mentioned that to the board already and asked Chairperson Long to be available for the interview, then Vice Chair Kitchen, and then Mark Jones as the other officer. So they've all agreed to that, and we'll schedule those meetings.
Thanks, Ashby. Anything else in your more regional role with the safety committee and anything there?
Thank you. I forgot about that. So the TxDOT safety work group met last Wednesday. There was discussion about, safety plans again, and we've got a regional safety plan we've been working on that's not, final by any means, but we've certainly been working on one. A lot of the other MPOs in the state have not. So we're a little bit ahead of the game there. There was also discussion about potentially using unspent funds at an MPO to advance safety projects. There was some confusion that Category 7 money that is sent to every MPO above 200,000 in population by formula can be moved among MPOs if it's not spent, meaning unobligated. That's not true. You can't do that. It's illegal. So the state can't just move that money around because it comes to us by formula from Congress. It can't be moved. The other part of that same discussion was Category 5, which is congestion mitigation and quality money. That can be moved. We have seen instances over the past, I'd say 6 months or so, and not every MPO in the state receives congestion mitigation air quality money. Currently, we do not because we're what's called entertainment for air quality conformity. But Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, El Paso, San Antonio, and now Beaumont do receive that money. We've seen and the vast majority goes to Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston. They have both sent unspent money back to DC this year to the tune of over $200 million, the last number I saw. So there may be some opportunities there. I don't know yet. We're still having that discussion with TxDOT because it will be up to TxDOT to either redistribute and or potentially convert that money over to another federal category where it can be spent. So we're still having those conversations and trying to agree with the commission members that are on the group. So we've got Commissioner Ryan and Commissioner New on there as well about what things we want to try to accomplish at a minimum there. And then we also spent some time talking about the safety discretionary grant that we discussed at the beginning of this meeting. I was asking that because I anticipate that many of the things that we may want to advance as projects later on will be on system. How does the state want to handle potential concurrence of different things? And they're setting up a process to do that. And basically what they told me was work through your district engineer. And the district engineers have already been informed how to send that up through the system at TxDOT to make sure the concurrences are done in a timely manner for the grants to be submitted.
Thanks, Ashby. All right. Any other questions on transportation activities? All right. We're at announcements. So the next policy board meeting is not until August 8th. They're taking a break in July. Our next TAC meeting is July 25th, but it sounds like before that meeting, we'll all be working on our decision about the Safe Streets for All grant and how we want to proceed forward for that. So please keep that in mind and on your calendars. and we can all go out and do a rain dance because I just got a Warren Central Texas notification. So hopefully we'll have a break in weather and some rain. So if I don't see any hands, can I have a motion for ending the meeting? Adjournment?
This is Combs. So moved.
All right. Thank y'all very much. Hopefully get wet.
Thank you.
Thank you.